Welcome back to I Catch Killers with our guest Lisa Mottram. In part one with Lisa, we talked about an accident Lisa had whilst driving intoxicated. That accident had devastating effects on many lives. No more than the 4 family members she hit with her vehicle who suffered serious permanent injuries. In part 2, we're going to talk about Lisa's experience in prison, the impact it had on those close to her, and how it changed her as a person and her view on life. This is not a pretty story, it's a sad story. Lisa is not asking for sympathy, but she wants people to understand the potentially devastating consequences of your actions. That is why she's telling her story. Welcome back, Lisa.
Thank you.
Again, and I'll keep saying it, thank you for being, telling a story that's so difficult. But I know in the conversations that I've had with you, you want to get that message out.
Yes, I do.
And these are the consequences of a poor decision.
Yeah.
And I don't think people fully appreciate it. But, if they sit down and really take in what you've said and how it's impacted on you, I think it's a warning for everyone.
Yes.
When we finished part 1, you're at court and you had been sentenced, and it was 4 years, 2 years non-parole, so minimum that you were going to spend was 2 years in jail. I read, and again, because it was in the media, that when that did happen, you turned to your family and said, I love you so much, I'm sorry.
Yes.
That's pretty heavy.
Yes, it's heavy. No amount of saying I'm sorry could ever really determine just how sorry I was. I knew that I needed strength from them as well. So the look on my father's face and my sister's face and my friend who is a solicitor was devastation. And from that moment on, I was changed.
Yeah. So I think people would be really interested in your story on what it's like to go into prison, not knowing anything about prison, not having any criminal associates that have been inside prison. So you were really going in naive and blind to the whole process. So you're standing there in your court clothes. So you would have had civilian clothes on?
Yes, civilian clothes on.
The judge has said it's now sent you to prison. Talk us through it step by step. What happens then?
My first night I spent at a holding cell at Amber Laurel, where I was taken there in the prison van, and spent my first night with a woman with tattoos all over her body. She wasn't talkative. She was bikie affiliated, and I didn't sleep.
And by that stage, had you in the prison van, and this is where I think you, having spent 2 years in custody, maybe desensitised to it. But a prison van, they're a scary thing. Talk to us about that. Just from transportation from the court, you would have been searched.
Yes,
handcuffed.
I was searched. I was strip searched, handcuffed.
And in the strip search, again, to warn people how invasive this whole process is, you are no longer in control of your own destiny.
No.
You do what people tell you to do.
You are told what to do, and you do it.
And you have someone there that you've never met strip, get all your gear off, and then you get searched.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
So there's nothing glamorous or exciting about it. This is prison. This is custody.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is intrusive, and just the way the officers made you feel was just like you're scum of the earth.
Yeah. Yeah. And it would have been something that you hadn't experienced?
Never.
Yeah.
Never. And I think this is where all the really negative emotions and feelings take take over. There are so many of them that it becomes overwhelming, and it's a sense that you can no longer control what you think.
Well, you can't control what you think, what you do,
No.
when you eat, when you sleep.
No, none of it. From Amber Laurel, I then had to, the next morning, go to Mullawa, Silverwater Women's, to basically book in.
Get classified.
To get classified.
Talk us through that process. So again, like this is, I think some people, it might be their worst nightmare, getting off a prison van in the prison, and now you're part of a system. And it's not like you're going in there and catching up with some old mates. You wouldn't have known anyone in there.
No, it was filthy. People around you who are also waiting to be processed, coming down off drugs, yelling abuse, officers telling them, not too nice, polite way to shut up, and that took hours of just sitting in a cell. At that stage, I had started crying again, and one of the young women who I had to share that cell while we were being processed with told me to stop crying, because if I didn't, I'd be going into a cell by myself with lights and cameras 24/7. I did tell her that I wanted to take my own life, and other officers heard it. So after I'd been processed, we went to induction. An induction is just part of the facility so they can see how you are. You start to, get your meals sent to you. There's mould, sick, feces everywhere. I have also not been around people who take drugs before. So I had no idea about the come down process and hardcore drugs. I'd spent a week in a cell there by myself with the lights and the cameras on me.
Talk me through that experience, because you say it like I spent a week, but that week seemed like a year, I would imagine.
It did. The sleep deprivation as well makes you you're not clear of thinking because you're tired, you're exhausted. I was glad, as I said prior, that it had all come to an end, that part, but there were still other parts that I had to conquer.
Yeah. And when you say you're glad it had come to an end, is that a monkey on your back sitting there waiting to find out whether you're going to be sentenced or not? Now?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
this is it.
This is what I'm dealing with.
This is what's happened. Mentally, I really tried to stay on top of things, but it was very overwhelming. Very overwhelming.
Right. So you got classified.
I got classified. So when you first arrive at prison, you are classified. I went in as a Category 4, which most of the women are. And then as you progress in the different areas, you then are talking to an officer that's in charge of making the decision of whether you come down the category or you stay where you are.
Right.
And that depends on behaviour, how they determine you're getting along with other women in there, and how you are mentally.
And they also considered putting you in protection?
Yes, they did.
They offered that to you?
They offered that to me because of the high-profile case, that it may be warranted to stop people trying to, take food from me or whatever. I didn't even understand what protection was, but at the time I said no. I'm going to be treated like everybody else, and that I stood firm on that.
Yeah.
They were worried about people standing over me.
Because you have really come in as a naive, very green to the whole thing.
Yes. The moment that I got there and was processed, you hand over your civvy clothes and you get a bag handed to you, a garbage bag, and that has your 3 outfits: green shorts, 3 green shirts, pair of tracksuit pants, pair of shoes, and a sloppy Joe. And
that's your outfit?
Yep.
How were you adjusting to all this?
I was petrified, absolutely petrified. I had watched girls before me that had been processed and then came to induction. There were girls after as well. I was adjusting to the fact that I had nothing in there, no photos of my family. Not sure when I'd be able to talk to them. And I was worried that something would happen to my mum and dad health-wise.
Yeah.
So there was the guilt of that as well.
I understand where you're coming from there. So it's not just the guilt of the accident, it's the impact that you've had on your family.
Yes.
And, if you went in there and your parents, the pressure and stress became too much and they passed away, you'd just add to your guilt.
It was my biggest fear. But I also thought of the time that I would be able to call them, and I had to say I was going okay.
Yeah.
But I was crumbling inside.
And what was that, just to help your parents out, not add to the burden of them saying you're struggling?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anyone that you could contact where you could,
No, there was a lady, a SAPO. So in jail terms, she's a lady who comes in and is able to help you with, an electricity bill.
Yeah.
And just looking after affairs that you had on the outside. There was nobody professional to talk to about what I was thinking and going through. I was thinking of my own selfish reasons and ending my life, not thinking about everybody else that it would have an impact on.
So you still had that thought in your mind?
Yes.
Even though that you knew what the punishment was?
Yes.
And that was, you couldn't not just live with the punishment, but it's just the guilt?
Yes. Oh, consuming.
Yeah.
Consuming.
Did you, you said you were petrified going in there. Did you have concerns for your own physical safety?
Yeah.
Talk us through that.
Yeah. You have a couple of schoolyard arguments. It's nothing like that. There are girls there that, know each other from the outside world.
Yeah.
And their dealings. I didn't know anybody, and who would I talk to? Would there be somebody in there who's done exactly what I've done that I can talk to and maybe help me in some way?
Because they would have seen you as a rarity in there, someone that had lived the life, like, let's call it for what it is, a straighty 180.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden you're inside with the rest of them, and they would want to take you down if you're getting around with any airs and graces.
Yes. I learnt very fast that I had to change the person that I was just even to survive in there.
Yeah.
I learnt very fast.
And like, again, and most people's understanding of prisons is what they've seen on TV or movies or documentaries, whatever. But that first occasion when you walk in, it's like a kid in a schoolyard. How are you going to make friends? You walk into the yard. Where do you sit to have lunch? All that type of stuff. How did you work your way through that?
Well, I didn't.
Yeah.
I just had to take a chance that if somebody said hello to me, I could say hello back.
Yeah.
There were women in there for fraud who majority of them would be like me.
Yeah.
Straighty 180.
Yeah.
Not used to this. So basically what happened was I ended up meeting a girl who was in there for fraud, and I didn't want to let my guard down too much either.
Yeah.
Or tell her too much, because I was still finding my feet. So I think the way that I handled it was very slow. I sat back, I listened, I watched, and I learnt.
Right.
And
Okay.
that's how I spent that first period. Yeah.
Just trying to be a grey man or grey woman.
Yeah.
And just blend in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And did you have any incidents that almost escalated, or you did something wrong or upset the wrong person?
Oh, definitely. There were, and I just bawl my eyes out. It's almost like you're in a false sense of security as well. You think just because, that one person or two people have spoken to you, a lot of the younger girls were caring because I was older.
Yeah.
And they could see that it wasn't my world.
That's not your environment.
No.
Yeah.
No. So, it was it was just about me blending in.
Yeah.
And not being seen as, being part of a group.
Yeah.
But just, to just exist.
Okay. And so which prisons did you spend the majority of your time in?
The majority of time I spent at Dilwinya.
Yep.
At South Windsor. That is I thought it was medium, but it's maximum.
Yeah.
I'd spent the majority of time there. When I first got there, it's a working jail, so everybody that is there works, and you have, your segregated jobs. So because I wasn't a drug user, I got the job as a sweeper, which is just a cleaner.
Yeah.
In the clinic.
Right.
So I was there every day.
Yeah. Did you were you one out in the cell, or did you have the cellmate?
No. So when I very first arrived, it was a month. I was in Mullawa for a month at Silverwater, and then went out to Dilwinya. So you go through a process again when you move to another jail. So I was in high needs, and I shared a cell with a dealer, and She also told me that she has psychotic episodes during the night. And
Lisa, talk me through that. Like, you're laying in a cell. You're in prison. You're locked up, and I don't think it would be conducive to a restful night's sleep.
No, I was
one eye open.
One eye open, definitely. That when you arrive, if you do need medication, there's a pill parade that happens, and then I suppose it's like, inside dealing. People sell their tablets.
Yeah.
And some of these girls are taking tablets that are not even prescribed to them and having psychotic episodes.
Yeah.
I felt dirty. The fact that I had to, have a shower in front of another woman.
Yeah.
Toilet. Keep the room clean.
Again, this is a thing that, unless you really put yourself into the thought process of what happens in jail, there is no privacy.
No, none at all. And, although there probably would have been about 20 of us together, 2 in each cell, you have a large community room that has a TV in it. You have your kettle and toaster. And just listening to women's stories and the fighting that goes on. It's nothing that a TV show could portray.
So this is when you say the fighting, the internal conflict in a pod of 20 women.
Yes.
And the disputes that they have, and I suppose that's synonymous with being locked up, but as well.
Well, now I know that.
Yeah,
I know that now. I didn't before.
Yeah.
And there are, women that come in and out that are hated by other women, and it's just, I suppose, timing that, if they're in there together and they've butted heads before, well,
yeah,
they're going to butt heads again.
They'll do it again.
Yeah.
And did you see physical violence there?
Oh, horrendous.
Yeah.
From TV, you sort of see the slap in movies and on shows, but in there it was, busted faces.
It's real violence.
It is very violent.
Yeah.
I really wasn't sure why when we first went there that, you get given a plate and a mug and a bowl and then you have plastic cutlery.
Yeah.
And it didn't take too long to realise that, if we had metal that these women would kill again.
Yeah. So you're in your pod. You're in with murderers and
yes,
a full range of criminals.
Yes.
And I suppose you had to adjust your thinking to come to terms with the fact that, well, you're all in this together now.
I did. I wouldn't have said that I was a judgmental person even going in there.
Yeah.
But in there, and you just don't judge. There is no judgment.
Yeah.
We are all in there because of something that we've done. And we're all equal.
Yeah.
So I had to definitely change my whole outlook and maybe come to that level where they are.
Yeah, that's interesting. But I if you went in there with just a hint of attitude or I'm better than you, you would have been a victim of the violence, I would imagine.
I've seen what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had to find yourself at their level, whatever level that is, and just get on with things.
Yeah.
Did you meet anyone in there or any group of people or individuals that you could relate to, or that you trusted or formed a bond with?
I did. I'd probably say 3 girls.
Right.
A lot of you never ask what people are in there for.
Yeah. You hear that said, is that how it really goes down?
Yeah.
Like people say that, never ask what you're in for?
Yeah.
And if you're stupid enough to tell someone what you're in for, it's usually because you're naive to the...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I learnt that very fast.
Yeah.
It's... I think where I was as a person then, I had to dig deeper into my soul and change the way that I spoke, I acted, just to be able to communicate. When I did find, a couple of young girls I ended up talking to, and they freely told me their story. And I'd spoken to both of them on separate occasions, and a lot of women who go in to jail have had trauma in their life.
Yeah.
Deep, deep trauma. And the girls that I spoke to, I just wanted to pick them up and take them home, and hopefully I could give them a better life.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and until you hear people's story, what got them there, and the trauma that kids can suffer when they're kids, where it should have been all protective, you can't really judge anyone, can you?
No.
It's let's find out what they've been through to make them get to this point. And, it's interesting you discovered that. Yes.
I also became aware that there were programs for these girls to do. A lot of them, so they could get parole, had to do these courses, and they go into some very deep personal conversations with the leaders of the teams who take the talks. And I started to think, wow, that's good, but then as soon as they walk out that door, they're so disturbed and upset because they've just shared personal stories that there's no support.
Yeah.
So I think you have to find yourself a person or a couple, and listening to other people's stories, you blend in some way.
Yeah.
And you can relate to it.
Well, I think if you got any ounce of empathy in you, you can understand people's, everyone's trying to make a life for themselves, and you've found yourself in a situation that you'd never envisaged. So who are you to judge other people that have found themselves in there as well?
Yeah.
Is there any, like with jail, there's a lot of discussion of, what's the purpose of jail? It's punishment, but then people are going to be released. So they've got to be prepared to come out into society, and we've got to prepare them for society, because most people, are released at some stage from prison. Is there any positives that you saw in prison, anything progressive that you thought, that's a step in the right direction? They mightn't have it perfect yet, but... is there anything that you could take away positive from your experience?
No.
Yeah.
No. I've seen a lot of what could be changed or dealt with differently. Yeah. I've seen girls angrier than what they've ever been. Because, as I said, there's no support. Once you tell your story and they go back, you're back out onto the ground, and they're carrying all of this still.
Yeah.
But there's really not a lot of support. Yeah. So as I said, the people that you can talk to are like gold.
Yeah.
And
they are other prisoners or corrective services or people
other
who are just coming in?
Other prisoners.
Yep.
You know, they're along the way there were some really nice officers.
Yeah.
But the majority, I have never ever been spoken to the way that they spoke to anybody who was in green. And I was a bit vocal. I'm the sort of person that if I speak to you, you show me respect, I'll give you respect back.
Yeah.
Everybody's not going to get along.
Yeah. But
I'm there. And I did turn around a couple of times and basically say, you know, we all shit out of the same hole. I'm here. I've been judged.
Yeah.
Please just, you know, don't make my time any harder.
Yeah, you're not here to be punished.
Because I'm like rock bottom.
Yeah. At what point, like 2 years in, did at any point you start to accept this as my norm and come to terms with your daily activities?
I think probably when I was about 8 months in, I'd found a friend that I could confide in. I was sharing a room after I was released from high needs. There's a medium and a low needs. I skipped medium and just went straight to low. So my friendship that I formed was with a lady who I shared my room with for about 3 months.
Yep.
And then we continued in the same house until I was moved from there.
That must make it more tolerable if you've got someone you can confide in and,
It was tolerable. My tears hadn't ended. There was still a lot of tears. And she gave me the strength to and the encouragement, you know. We're after each day, she said, we're another day closer to getting out. Yeah. To just have that one person who you could tell anything to, how you were feeling. There were psychologists there, and I'd been a couple of times, but they don't deal with trauma. And what I needed to do was relive my accident the twice that I went, and I couldn't do it. There was no help.
Yeah.
No professional help.
Who was it? You told me when we were having a chat before that someone told you enough, you got to stop crying. Was that your friend you were talking about there?
Yes.
And she gave you that advice. So
yes.
When you say you were crying, was that every day you were crying, or were you just highly emotional, or just waking up and just tears? Or
every day.
Yeah.
Every day I'd cry myself to sleep. I'd wake up. I'd start crying again.
Yeah. And is that the crying over the whole situation, not just you being in jail?
Everything.
The accident?
Still the guilt, the remorse, feeling ashamed. You know, it was everything, but everything negative.
Yeah.
And as I was prior to the accident, I never had a lot of negativity, but all the emotions, as I've said before, are just so many negative emotions that you don't know how to deal with them.
Yeah.
You accept talking to a friend, and she's not a psychologist, but she was able to help me build some inner strength and find the me that I needed to be while I was in jail.
Yeah. I'm wondering, and this is a personal question, and looking at it from a personal point of view, from my point of view, you've been through something that's so horrendous. Did you allow yourself to find any joy in life, like what you've been through? And it's, in terms of things, it's not that long ago. Can you now find some joy in life? Can you look and go, well, stop and smell the roses? Is there?
That's very rare.
Yeah.
It's very rare. I feel like I'm stuck at the moment. I know I have to move forward, but I can't express everything that's going on in my head.
Yeah.
So as well as trying to find me, the thought process and mind maps that are in my head are just so significant. I can't concentrate. I pick up a book, I start to read it, and then I'm reading the same paragraph 7 times.
Yeah.
I watch TV. I'm not really watching it. It's just I'm watching people talk on TV.
So it sounds like you're just going through the emotions.
Yes.
You're numb to life.
Yes. I had been seeing a psychologist. I'm doing an online course at the moment for depression and anxiety. She's obviously helped me out with the PTSD that I have as well. It's just figuring it all out now and getting used to being on the outside again, using the metal cutlery.
Yeah.
I've got a choice of more things than green clothes. It's hard.
I've seen people, and I'd call them institutionalised in that they're comfortable in they get told what to do. They get 3 meals a day. It's a simpler life for them, and they don't have to make decisions.
It's very routine.
After 2 years, talk us about the day you were released. So you knew your time had come up. You'd been before the parole board, and
yes.
They gave you an indication that you would be released.
Yes. I just want to say prior to that, I was flagged for home detention.
Right.
So if I got that would allow me to have my last 6 months at home.
Yep.
With an ankle bracelet.
Yep.
To try and reintegrate back into society.
Yeah.
It was a terrible time with COVID, and there were new people on the parole board from the communities.
Yeah.
And I was knocked back.
Right.
Because the community wanted me to do my whole time in jail. And I got through that next 6 months, which was really, really hard.
So that carrot was dangled at you, the possibility, and then taken away. That would be hard. And you mentioned something, and we had raised it in our conversations before, and I forgot about this, but this would have impacted on you too. Most of your time in prison was during the COVID crisis, and so no visitors.
No visitors. And that's the only thing that we have to look forward to on a weekend is, giving someone a cuddle, touch, talking. It's familiar.
Well, it gives you something. You've just something to look forward to.
Yeah. So I went in the November and February. Our visits were cut.
Yeah.
So they did come back for a few weeks later on in that year. It was still sitting 1.5 meters apart, masks on, and you couldn't touch.
Yeah.
So that was going to affect me more, and I didn't want
be harder
anybody there.
Yeah.
So I chose that.
Yeah. So when you were released, what's the process of being released? We talked about how you got classified. So did they, open the big gates and give you your bag of clothes and out you walk?
Yeah, a little bit like that. I think the process was a little different with me now. Your release time is usually around 10 o'clock. You can apply for an early release if you've got to travel on the train, example, Wagga, wherever. In the paper, there'd been an article to say that I was being released.
Yep.
And when I found that out, I got really, really upset.
That would have freaked you out.
Because I just thought, when are you going to leave me alone?
I've done my time.
Leave me alone.
Yeah.
So it was nice in the respect that the boss had said to me, called me into her office and she said, we're going to give you a 6:30 release.
Yeah.
Is that okay? I said, that'd be great. So
you're not walking out to cameras in your face.
That's right. That's right. So, yes, you're basically handed back your belongings that you went in with. You have to hand in all of your clothing that they'd given you. And, basically put in a bag, and it was a goodbye. But I have heard officers even say, "See you next time."
Yeah. Yeah. Recidivist offences, it's staggering the amount of people that are back in jail within the 2 years of being released from prison.
Oh, there was one girl and she'd been in and out 4 times.
Yeah.
In that time.
Who picked you up?
Dennis picked me up.
Yeah.
After many family discussions that they had all had, they decided that was probably the best way. Dennis had a bigger car.
Yeah.
I needed room that, to hide.
Yeah.
Basically.
How did it feel your first night outside?
Overwhelming.
Overwhelming with a overload of senses, emotions.
Yes. Freedom.
Go for a walk if you wanted to go for a walk.
Yeah, but even that's hard.
Yeah.
I'm usually in a confined area.
Yeah.
So now I can go for a walk. But how far do I walk? Where do I walk? I've got, a couple of jumpers that I can choose to wear.
Not all green.
There was days that I wore the same clothes.
Yeah.
Because that's what I was used to. There were, drinking out of a coffee mug.
Yeah.
Having sugar. Fresh fruit.
Just an overload, isn't it?
Very, very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
How did you find friends and family reacted to you? Because now you're the ex-prisoner. Did they look at you differently, and did they support you? Or?
Some have looked at me very differently, and I've lost friends, dear friends, but the majority of them were, you've done your time, give yourself a break.
Yeah.
But I haven't.
Is that still the guilt hanging over?
Yes.
From the accident?
Yes.
And that's Have you got any way of working through that? Is there anyone that's giving you advice? Are you going to be able to forgive yourself at some stage, or?
I'd like to think that I could forgive myself. I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
It's just what I have to do is learn how to cope with me now.
Yeah.
My feelings change from day to day. So although I'm doing my best to be in a normal world, I'm not.
Every day is a struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to, get up out of bed.
How would you describe the changes in you from pre-accident to now?
I talk about my feelings now. I never used to. If I am having a bad day, in my head, it's still because I deserve it.
Yeah, that's a big thing to carry, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, well, I don't care what happens to me because I deserve it because of what I've done.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to try and find some normality. You know, my reconnection with Sophie while I was in jail, my mum and dad, you know, their unconditional love, support, my friends. I need to be able to move on, but there are triggers everywhere though.
Yeah. Well, my observation, I can see the love that your daughter's giving towards you, so that has to count for something, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. So
it does.
And that's the first time I've seen you smile. So.
So.
It's The pain is etched over your face, but the fact that you can smile at the thought about your relationship with your daughter has to be a positive.
Yeah.
So, what's for your future?
It's a day at a time.
Yeah, yeah.
It is literally a day at a time.
Yeah.
I don't know what my future holds.
Yeah.
The tiny little goals that I set for myself is as little as getting a load of washing out on the line.
Yeah.
And ironing it and putting it away.
Well, I sometimes think that, when you're at your lowest point, that's those little incremental steps that you take are the ones that are going to get you,
You build on them.
Yeah. And look, bringing it back to the very reason that you've come on the podcast is to, let people know the consequences of, poor decisions.
Yes.
And I think the fact that you've told this deeply personal story, and I'm sitting here watching how painful it is, everything that we're bringing up, but that has to be doing some good. To be doing some good.
I need for people to really learn from my story. We've had education on drink driving. We've all sat back, known somebody who has done it. And it isn't just the fact you're going to get pulled over and you might lose your license.
Yeah. That's nothing compared to
it. Is nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And it happens.
Yeah.
So for all the people that think, that won't happen to me, it does. And it ruins your life and the people who you have affected.
Well, I think that's such an important message. So we might end the podcast on that note. But I'm personally want to thank you for having the courage to come on and tell your story and the reason behind it. I know you're still in pain. I know it, and it's probably going to stay with you for a long time. But try to be kind to yourself and take that little step each day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks.
Cheers.